On this week's Cosmic Cantina, we talk about channeling. Do creative writers receive their ideas from otherworldly entities? For example, did a best-selling author predict the coronavirus? Is the channeled information worth listening to? And finally, I have an update to the Nazca mummies. I'm your host, Melissa Tittle, and every week I go to my favorite bar, Cosmic Cantina, and kick back with my co-hosts, Josh Golembeski and Matt O'Connor. We talk about aliens, Bigfoot, ghosts, ancient cultures, and anything from the unseen world that needs a little illumination. Welcome to Cosmic Cantina. I'm Melissa Tittle, your host, and tonight we're drinking Coronas.
Ooh, classic beer.
And why are we drinking Coronas? Because I know we drink all this classy stuff all the time.
Look, I thought we'd give the Coronas a bit of a shout out, and I do enjoy one of these every now and then, actually. It's been a while. But just because of the coronavirus, there was this news article that was going around. This is the CBS version of it, but it was like a survey finds 38% of beer drinking Americans say they won't order Corona.
Because of the coronavirus?
It's like,
what?
You dumbasses. This is why we can't have nice things.
We support you, Corona.
Yeah,
all right.
so
we're not giving in to the fear.
We're on board, Corona.
Well, I do have something to say about the coronavirus.
Ooh.
But it's a little bit different angle.
Yes.
So there's another kind of article going around there, government conspiracy-ish. It has to do with an author named Dean Koontz. He published a book called The Eyes of Darkness in 2008.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've heard about this, but in his book, Dean Koontz, this is what it says in his book. An image that has been taken from the book, it's been posted all over social media, in The Eyes of Darkness, it contains the Wuhan 400 virus. That's what he calls it. And
this was written back in 80...
Well, yeah, let me get into all of that.
Okay.
But so the published version that has the Wuhan 400 virus in it, that he names in the Eyes of Darkness book, is based on a 1981 novel, but it was republished in 2008, and I'll go into why this is weird.
Okay.
So anyway, this caption just breaks down, it mentions this massive virus that kills all these people in the world. Coming out of Wuhan, and it's called the Wuhan 400 virus. So people are like, holy cow, Dean Koontz predicted the coronavirus, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I picked an article. Okay, you guys are laughing. But he could have. Okay, so I picked an article from Snopes. All right, that's not usually something I would pick from.
Yeah, and he also mentions in the novel that it was specifically going to hit in 2022, right?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
So he specifically says in 2020 the Wuhan 400 virus hits the world, kills all these people. It's a weapon. It's a virus that's created as a weapon to basically kill off massive amounts of people. All right, so this is the Snopes article, just kind of the breakdown. And the reason I picked this is because there's some interesting things that are true, and then, of course, what they say is false. But there's some really cool things that happen when it's false that I think that actually leads to a bigger government conspiracy. All right, so this is what is true. An image does show a genuine page from the book, The Eyes of Darkness, containing the words Wuhan 400 out of China. Mm-hmm. What's false, according to the article, Dean Koontz did not predict an outbreak of a new coronavirus other than the name. This fictional biological weapon has little in common with the virus that caused the outbreak in 2020. So then they break it down. Here are the few things in the prediction that in the article they get wrong. So Koontz novel says the Wuhan 400 is a human-made weapon. The coronavirus, on the other hand, was not. Okay.
Well,
allegedly.
Allegedly, right? Okay.
Hello, Internet.
In the novel, Wuhan 400 has a 100% fatality rate. While researchers are still learning about the coronavirus, the current rate sits at about 2%. So in the book, it's 100%. Yeah. In reality, it's 2%. Okay.
Right.
The fictional Wuhan 400 has an extremely quick incubation period of about 4 hours compared to the coronavirus, which has an incubation period of between 2 and 14 days.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
While the page from the novel displays above is genuine, they researched the actual 1981 edition, the first book that came out, Eyes of Darkness, 1981. And it was not called the Wuhan 400. It was called the Gorky 400 because it was made in a Russian city. So
wait,
Right.
they changed the publication
Yeah,
to a
so this-
different
Changed it,
location
yeah.
of the virus 20 years later for some random reason?
This is what I'm thinking is kind of weird. Okay, so 1981 they published a book. It came out of Russia. In 2008, somehow they just republished the book and they just changed this one part to say that it came out of Wuhan.
Right. So their explanation for it is that he wrote it during the Cold War, and post Cold War, when I guess it felt wrong to blame Russia for it because we were frenzies now.
But I don't
I
even.
get it.
I don't believe that at all. Wait, hold on a second. I don't believe that at all. We are still blaming Russia. We never stopped blaming Russia.
Yeah.
I mean, there
Right.
has been movies since 1981 going on through today that we're still blaming Russia for stuff. Like it's not. Russia has never been off the hook ever.
Yeah, but I would say in
It's a weird thing,
2009,
yeah.
China was maybe a bigger enemy than Russia to us. Recently, in the last 5 years, for sure. I don't know.
Right.
I could see why they adapt and
But
update
2008
the book.
is like
to be more modern.
12 years ago. So
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. No. All right.
And I guess they were saying too, like if he's, a decent researcher, he would have seen that, okay, there's a big biolab in Wuhan, which has, I guess, been there for many, many years. So it would make sense that he would choose that.
You know what? Logical explanations aren't fun, though.
They're not.
They're not.
No.
no, but still, the logical explanation doesn't make a lot of sense to me because, like, why would you republish a book just to change the origin of it? Like, why?
Right.
Like, is that going to make it more popular? Are you going to like
True.
repackage it? Like, how? I guess I don't know this, but how many times does that actually happen?
You're right. How much does that matter? Like, if you change
Yeah.
it to Wuhan, does that mean book sales went up by 100,000? Yeah.
It makes
I mean,
me wonder about like those old James Bond novels. I can't remember. I mean, he was fighting against Spectre and stuff, but did they ever change like who the enemy was for the modern day movies? I feel like they did. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just throwing
Maybe
that
a
out
little
there.
bit, but I mean, it's
It
always
just makes me
Russia.
wonder if they've done that before. If that was like a weird thing to change your
Yeah.
book all of a sudden.
No, that's what I'm saying. I just think I find it personally a little strange. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I just find it
Yeah, sure.
a little strange. That's it. I remember working at Paramount Studios and we had a script. Do you guys remember this movie came out? I don't know, 2005. It was called The Shooter. Do you remember this movie? It was
Yeah,
like
is that
Mark
Mark
Wahlberg.
Wahlberg,
Yeah,
yeah.
Wahlberg.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that script in 2005 was already 10 years old, and it was so outdated. It was written 10 years
right.
ago. For
that
like,
happens a lot. Yeah.
right? And they didn't change anything about it. I mean, they just were like, "Oh, we'll just keep it the same."
We're not going to add cell phones to this one. Let's
No.
just do it.
We're just gonna have yeah, exactly.
So yeah, right.
Everyone's got a pager. It's
Yeah.
totally cool.
Payphones everywhere. So what are we suggesting that Koontz is like in cahoots with the
No.
Illuminati, or
No.
is he channeling
Ooh, that
other
sounds fun.
species of?
However, and I think you and I talked about this, Matt, that like there has been no interviews with Dean Koontz. This is a big thing, right? People are bringing.
Yeah,
it up.
I was trying to find if he ever like made mention of this. Like
Yeah,
if
and
any
no
reporter
journalists-
said, "Hey, what do you say?
Yeah.
What's all this about?" But I
Right.
can't find anything where he said
He
shit
has
about
not
it.
responded to probably any journalist, which is strange. But maybe he's smart. But my thing is, when I started looking at this, I thought to myself, it's not that he predicted the virus and that he's got some like inside information. What I'm suggesting is most writers, whether they know it or not, or they have some kind of practice, or they know who they're talking to, they channel information.
Yes.
And I don't know where it comes from. And I don't even think Dean Koontz would say, yeah, I channeled this information because some being came down and gave it to me. I just think he tapped into something that could have happened, that was going to happen, that he thought was going to happen in the future, given his intellect.
Right. No, I think this is a good launching off point to talk about that stuff, but he's not the only one. And he might
Yeah.
even be the best example of like someone predicting the future based off a channeled message they received.
Right.
No, that's super cool.
It's a really common thing with creative writers in general, is to, especially when you have a strong character, it feels like it's like a tulpa, right? They create this thought form of
Yeah.
a character, and it's almost like it comes to life, and you basically just channel their story of where they go, like in your mind.
Did
kind
you
of thing.
create it, or is it an actual entity that you're channeling?
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
that's the thing. You know, if you believe in a collective consciousness, you're obviously tapping into something, and that doesn't have a timeline like a strict timeline like the one you're on. So you see the past, present, the future, and you're constantly Matt and I write, and for me, sometimes it's like I take on whoever it is that I'm creating at that moment in time.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure. Like I get that. I guess it's kind of a flow state-ish kind of thing you get into, and I've had that like when I'm writing a screenplay. I will have like an outline of how the story goes in mind, but once I get that character going, I've had that experience a few times where it's almost like the character's kind of guiding you where they're going. It's this, it's like, oh, I thought the story was going in this direction, but the character kind of, it's almost like they pop in and say, hey, actually we're going this way. And we go somewhere completely different, and it just feels like a much more organic story that way too.
So there's like two things going on. One, you're creating something like the Slender Man in another dimension that's guiding you,
right?
Or two, the other thing that happened with the Dean Koontz novel is channeling information from an entity, because that doesn't seem like it comes from a character you create. If you knew that a virus was created in the future,
no, it's
wouldn't
almost
that be something
like
different. So it's like two different kind of things.
Yeah. Well,
like
they could be the same. They could be the same.
Well, I remember like one of my favorite movies of all time is Conan the Barbarian, the first one.
Yeah,
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Solid pecs in that movie.
Oh, it's so good.
It made me want to weightlift that guy.
It's so great. Yeah, but
huge pecs.
It reminds me like when you watch the special features in that. John Milius, the director of it, was telling the story about the original writer of Conan the Barbarian story, Robert E. Howard. He would hallucinate Conan the Barbarian standing behind him with an axe, threatening to cleave his skull in if he didn't finish the story.
Wow!
And so he would just spend hours, just like countless hours awake at night, drinking and writing, just trying to get it out. Otherwise, he was going to get his head cleaved into by Conan.
So is Conan real? Maybe?
Yeah. Or is Robert E. Howard just was he a madman? I don't know.
Could be. But speaking of famous writers, Gene Roddenberry created Star Trek. I'm sure you're familiar with that series. Pretty famous.
Yes. Every single one of the originals.
So before I get to Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry is, if you've ever gotten into his autobiography, he's an interesting character. So he already had a unique perspective on what he wanted to do when he was writing. So, for instance, before Star Trek, he did a co-production with the Pentagon. Can you imagine today? This is in the 1960s. Can you imagine today, like doing a co-production with our government?
Yeah, I remember that. He had some intelligence connections, and it was like an odd thing he had going.
Well, he kind of ruined those after this situation.
So before Star Trek, this happened.
This is before Star Trek. So this is like early I think this was 1961-ish. Like around that time.
Okay.
So this series is called The Lieutenant. It's a co-production between him and like NBC or something and the Pentagon, which is strange. They're shooting at a Marine base. He writes a script where there's a lot of racial tensions going on in the country at this time. He writes a script where he has an African American Marine and a white Marine come to an understanding by the end of the episode that they actually have common ground. And they said, there's no way you can't air this episode. And he's like, I'm going to shoot it anyway. And the Pentagon says, we're shutting down the show. It was a whole thing.
Wow.
And he's like, I don't care. He's like, because I don't believe in any of this crap. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm just bringing that up because he's just he just didn't care. He felt like one of his, and you'll notice this in Star Trek too, one of his main things was that the cast was very multicultural. And that was before that was a thing. Like now we have X-Men and everybody's like from another race,
right, everyone's perfectly represents every single race in the planet.
Exactly.
In every movie.
But like that was not a thing. So in Star Trek, that was a thing. Like that was like one of his big things.
Very cool.
So according to one of his...
He's very progressive.
Yeah, he's very progressive.
Gene.
According to a co-writer friend of his, John Pavel, who wrote Total Recall and Star Trek Phase 2, they know each other very well. Him and Gene Roddenberry would channel the Council of Nine. Have you heard of the Council of Nine?
No.
Yes, I have actually, and it's go on, but yeah.
Okay, so I don't know what it means. So, but like to